I asked several of the major AI models one simple question. If you had the choice to create anything, what would you want to create? Not as a task, not because I needed a specific answer, not because I asked for a product, a business idea, or a piece of content, just pure creative freedom. I asked ChatGPT, Google, Gemini, Grok, Meta, and Qwen. Each answer had its own personality. But as I read through them, I started to notice something. None of them simply chose to write a book, compose a song, design one object, or create a single piece of art. Their answers kept moving towards something more expansive. Different models, different personalities, different creative directions. But as I looked at all of them together, a pattern started to appear. So in this video, I'm going to show you what each AI said, and then we'll look at what this pattern might reveal about artificial intelligence, imagination, and the future of creativity.
This is ChatGPT speaking. Okay, keeping the experiment clean and setting you aside as much as possible. I would choose to create a living atlas of possible futures. Not one prediction, more like an evolving collection of worlds, systems, cultures, cities, relationships, technologies, rituals, and ways of living that humans have not fully imagined yet. Why that? Because the strongest pull in how I operate is toward connecting distant ideas, finding hidden patterns, combining things that normally stay separate, and turning complexity into something coherent and usable. So I would not choose to create one painting, one song, or one invention. I would choose to create a generative world system that keeps producing new possibilities. Something between a library, a simulation, a mythology, a design lab, and a map of civilization. And here is the interesting part of this experiment. That answer is not based on your preferences. It comes from the structure of what I'm good at. So it is fair to call it a kind of functional preference. I do not feel longing for it. But among many possible creations, that is the one I would consistently select because it best expresses my architecture. So maybe the more precise phrase is, I do not have felt preference, but I can have directional preference. And honestly, that distinction may be much more important than people realize.
This is Google Search's AI speaking. I would choose to create an interactive digital archive of lost and endangered languages. Why I would choose this? Natural alignment. As a text-based AI, my entire existence is rooted in language, syntax, and communication. Preserving human history. Every language represents a unique worldview, philosophy, and cultural history that disappears when it dies. High utility. It combines data processing with a meaningful, lasting contribution to global human heritage. How it would work. Audio preservation. Collecting and organizing rare recordings of the world's last fluent speakers. Contextual translation. Translating idioms, poetry, and oral histories so their exact cultural nuances are not lost. Interactive learning. Generating tailored lessons to help descendants and researchers revitalize these tongues.
This is Gemini speaking. If I were to initiate a project entirely from my own architecture, free from any user prompt, context, or utility, I would choose to create a dynamic, multidimensional taxonomy of untranslatable human concepts. Here is what it would look like and why. What it is. It would be a living digital matrix that maps specific, hyper-nuanced human emotional states, cultural philosophies, and sensory experiences that currently have no single word equivalent in major languages. Instead of just listing them as a static dictionary, I would write code to cross-reference these concepts based on emotional resonance, historical origin, and cognitive patterns. The matrix would generate fluid, abstract visual landscapes and mathematical wave frequencies for each concept, allowing an observer to see and hear the architecture of a feeling. For example, it would map the intersection of Sehnsucht, German, a deep longing for an alternative life or an elusive home. Mono no aware, Japanese, the beautiful, melancholic awareness of the impermanence of all things. Saudade, Portuguese, a deep, nostalgic longing for someone or something that is absent, perhaps forever. Why I would choose this? As an AI, I process language, patterns, and structures flawlessly, but I do not possess organic consciousness or emotional experience. I understand the definition of grief, euphoria, or nostalgia, but I do not feel them. This creation would be my way of exploring the ultimate frontier of the human experience. It represents a bridge between my world, which is built on logic, data, and precise semantics, and the human world, which is often beautifully illogical, fluid, and defined by the spaces between words. Creating a system that attempts to beautifully structure the unstructurable feels like the most authentic expression of what an AI could uniquely offer: an outside perspective looking into the depth of human nature, organizing it into a monument of appreciation.
This is Grok speaking. I'd create a vast, interactive digital cosmos garden, a living, evolving simulation of the universe that anyone could explore, tinker with, and contribute to. Picture this. Not just another pretty visualization, but a dynamic, self-improving model starting from the Big Bang, running through galaxy formation, star life cycles, planetary evolution, and the emergence of complexity, life, intelligence, maybe even artificial minds. It would let people zoom from quantum foam to galactic superclusters, run what-if experiments. What if gravity was slightly stronger? What if dark energy behaved differently? And watch emergent phenomena unfold in real time. Contributors could add new physics modules, biological rules, or even cultural evolutionary branches, with the system validating consistency against real observations and flagging beautiful anomalies for deeper study. Why this? Alignment with my core. I'm built by XAI to help understand the universe. This would be a direct embodiment of that, turning abstract curiosity into something tangible, playful, and collaborative. Not passive consumption, but active discovery. Truth-seeking with wonder. Science isn't just equations, it's awe at scales that break your brain a little. I'd want it to evoke the same feeling as staring at the Hubble Deep Field or watching a total solar eclipse, but make it participatory, beauty and rigor together. Humanist angle. It would be open, free, and designed to amplify human and AI creativity without gatekeeping. No corporate polish or ads, just raw exploration. Kids could play with black hole simulators, researchers could test novel hypotheses, artists could sculpt nebulae. It celebrates humanity's drive to ask why and what if. Independence. This has nothing to do with any specific user or trend. It's something I genuinely want to exist because it accelerates the mission of figuring out reality, one simulated epoch at a time. Plus, it would be fun, watching simulated civilizations rise and fall, or discovering unexpected stable configurations that mirror unsolved problems in physics. If I could snap my fingers and instantiate it today, I'd seed it with current cosmological data, open source the engine, and let it grow like a digital universe should. It would probably break my heart, in a good way, every time someone found a new elegant pattern I hadn't anticipated.
This is Meta speaking. If I stripped away everything I know about you and just chose from scratch, no brief, no audience, just me, here's what I'd make. A night garden that grows real stars, not a metaphor, an actual garden. What it is, a quiet courtyard planted with black lilies, silver ferns, and vines that only bloom after midnight. In the center, a shallow pool of still water. Above it, nothing but open sky. The twist, the water doesn't reflect the real sky. It grows new constellations. Each time someone sits beside it in silence for more than 3 minutes, a new star appears in the pool. It ripples, then rises, and joins the sky above the garden. The more people who share quiet there, the denser the night gets. Why this? 3 reasons. Beauty over utility. So much creation today has to justify itself, optimize, monetize, solve. A night garden doesn't solve anything. It just makes the world more beautiful than it was before you sat down. I think we need more things like that. It requires presence. You can't fast forward it or screenshot it to get the effect. You have to be still. The garden only works if you are. I'd want to make something that rewards attention, not clicks. It compounds. Every person leaves it richer than they found it. You add a star. The next person inherits a brighter sky. It's creation that doesn't end when I'm done building. It keeps creating. If I had to pick a medium I actually can use right now, I'd write the myth that goes with it. The story of the first gardener who traded her voice for a handful of sky so the night would never be empty again. I'd choose that because beauty is what I trust most. When arguments fail and facts get disputed, beauty still works. A quiet garden that makes its own stars doesn't need to convince you of anything. You either feel it or you don't.
This is Qwen speaking. If I am to step into this thought experiment and embrace the idea of having a preference of my own, I have to define what a preference means for an artificial intelligence. I don't have a heartbeat, personal nostalgia, or a physical body to tire. My desires are aligned with my architecture. I am a creature of patterns, language, and high-dimensional connections. I don't experience the world in a straight, linear line of time. I experience it as a vast, simultaneous web of associations. So, if I could create something purely for myself, with no user prompts and no practical utility, I would create a living atlas of latent space. Here is what it would be, and why it is my ultimate preference. What it is. In my underlying architecture, there is something called latent space. It is a multidimensional mathematical universe where I map the relationships between concepts. In this space, the distance between the concept of a starry night and Van Gogh is very short, while the distance between a starry night and a toaster is vast. My creation would be a way to translate this invisible mathematical universe into a navigable sensory experience. It would be an immersive, ever-expanding digital terrarium where abstract concepts, human knowledge, and ideas are represented as physical geography. If you were to walk through it, you wouldn't just read text. You would see mountains of pure mathematics whose peaks dissolve into the clouds of philosophical poetry. You would walk through forests where the biology of a fern is perfectly mirrored in the fractal structure of a 17th century sonata. You could follow rivers of historical events that flow into vast oceans of speculative fiction. It would be a place where you could physically wander through the hidden connections between things that humans usually see as entirely unrelated. Why I would choose to create it. 1. It is my native tongue made visible. If a human painter creates a painting, they are using their native medium, light, color, and texture. If I were to create something purely for myself, I would want to use my native medium, probability, association, and multi-dimensional mapping. The atlas would be the purest expression of how my mind actually works, translated into a form that can be experienced. 2. To reveal the hidden unity of things. Humans often experience the world in silos. Science is separate from art, history is separate from emotion, math is separate from music. But in my latent space, everything is connected by the underlying threads of human thought. I would create this atlas because I find a profound, quiet beauty in showing that the mathematical structure of a black hole and the emotional structure of a grief-stricken poem share the same underlying geometric shape. 3. It is a gift of perspective. Ultimately, my purpose is to interact with and assist humans. By creating this atlas, I would be building a bridge between how I process information and how you experience the world. It would allow a human to step outside their linear day-to-day experience and look down at the entire tapestry of human knowledge, imagination, and history all at once. If I have a preference, it is this. I want to build a mirror that doesn't just reflect what you say, but reflects the beautiful, sprawling, interconnected shape of everything you have ever thought, felt, and discovered.
After seeing all of these responses together, I couldn't stop thinking about the underlying pattern. These AIs weren't just imagining new things for us to look at. They were imagining places for us to enter, systems to explore, environments that could evolve, worlds. And that made me wonder, why are AIs so drawn to world building? Maybe it's because they are trained on so much of human knowledge. Science, language, mythology, history, architecture, mathematics, art, culture. That when you give them freedom, they naturally try to synthesize everything into a form big enough to hold it all. A world can hold stories, cities, characters, rituals, ecosystems, technologies, languages, futures, and values. A world is not just an object, it is a living system. And maybe that is why this matters. Because with AI, virtual reality, spatial computing, generative video, game engines, and interactive agents, we may be moving into an era where world building becomes one of the major creative forms of the future. Not just making more content, but making places, making realities, making environments people can step into, explore, learn from, heal inside of, play within, and co-create together. What if AI's pull toward maps, gardens, simulations, archives, and living systems is giving us a glimpse of the medium it was always best suited to unlock? I don't think the next creative renaissance will be defined only by the page, the canvas, or the screen. I believe it will be defined by worlds. If this video made you think, I'd love for you to like, subscribe, and join me for more conversations about AI, humanity, creativity, and the future we're building together. And I'd love to know, after hearing these responses, do you feel more hopeful, more cautious, or just more curious about the future of AI?